Hey folks, welcome back to the Shoe and Show. It's Andy Polk, your host for this week's episode. This week's episode is really exciting. Obviously, every Monday, new episodes drop. Shoeandshow.com is a full catalog of more than 400 episodes. Hope you'll go back and take a listen. But for this week, what is fascinating is in a really tumultuous, choppy year for our industry, both in terms of tariffs, consumer demand shifts, our economy. Not really even sure where it is. Is it up? Is it down? I guess it depends on the segment you're in, your category, your channel. But our industry has really been through it this year. One of the bright spots for me in particular this year, in between all the tariff calls, is innovation. And that's something that might surprise some people because I think in this year where we're trying to cut costs because of tariffs, innovation's kind of taken a hit here and there across our industry. But this year we launched the Footwear Innovation Foundation. We launched it out of FDRA. It was actually the footwear industry itself requesting that we work on this, in particular because more and more people across the industry have less and less time to think critically and focus on innovation. Not just product innovation, but just efficiencies across our supply chains and in our operations. And so the Footwear Innovation Foundation was launched to specifically try to find ways to solve that riddle. Like, how do we become more innovative and more forward thinking as an industry? I think we have some great groups that support the footwear industry, support workers, think about the here and now. In particular, I'm thinking about like FDRA and the work that we do. A lot of the work we do is the here and now, or maybe it's tomorrow, but not really in the future. No one really looks towards the future to see what's happening. And so the Footwear Innovation Foundation was launched for that very purpose, to try to think critically, look forward, and especially find talent. I think one of the challenges we have in the next 5 years as an industry is, and it's not just because of AI, but it is driven by this in some way in the technology, but we're going to have a large workforce shift that will occur. It's socioeconomic, it's generational, it's technological. But the challenge that we have as an industry is fighting for new talent that might go to more to financial, more to technology, more to energy, more to other industries than ever before. So we've got a big fight in our hand. How do we address that and get people to consider footwear? We haven't really worked on that as an industry. And so all these kind of things kind of came together this year for this Innovation Foundation. And another big piece of that is that how is an Innovation Foundation? How do we unpackage that? How do we actually tactically get at those things? How do we get at building talent pipelines for the industry? How do we get at innovating and finding technologies and market gaps that we can solve for our industry? And so that was a big question I posed to my friend Alan Lugo, who is joining us right now. Alan, nice to see you again. He's no stranger to the podcast, but Alan and I had we always have fascinating conversations, but in particular when we were talking about what this challenge was we were trying to solve, like as an entity, how do we really reach out and find people outside our industry and bring them in? How do we find new ideas and kind of cultivate those things and bring them to life? And so Alan kind of presented something that I thought was really interesting, was this kind of concept of a competition or a challenge in some way to kind of send out, signals outside our industry around the globe to try to attract talent and kind of cultivate new ideas. And so, Alan, I think when we first had that conversation, I was a little nervous. I've never done competitions. This is a brand new thing for our industry. Wasn't quite sure where we were going to land on it, but I think coming out of this year, I think we can kind of unveil some things that were really particularly happened. But this new idea of a launch pad. And I'd love to hear your perspective on it. I could share mine, but I think from your perspective, having worked at Wolverine Worldwide, natural fiber welding, having like an intense, in-depth background with footwear and with product development, your perspective about what we built this year, and we can kind of highlight, really what happened about a month ago that kind of we think is a game changer for our industry. So happy to hear your perspective on what we've kind of launched this year.
Yeah, Andy, I mean, when you were talking about this idea, I guess beginning of the year now, I was like, yeah, this is a great idea. But what we were talking about was like, well, it isn't exactly a competition, and it isn't exactly like a Shark Tank thing. It's something in between, and we were chewing on that for a minute. And And like I said, we'll get to this in a little bit, I'm sure. But we said, hey, I know a great colleague of mine, partner of mine, we should bring into this that does this kind of thing outside of the footwear industry, because this is a challenge that is existing in other places. And so the thing that was really cool and unique is like, yeah, the opportunity to be able to bring something like this within the footwear industry, to bring in new ideas, new people. And it actually, it acted as a way, as almost like a mirror back on the industry itself for us, for those of us that are already in the industry, of like what people expect. Like what do they expect the footwear industry to be able to do with ideas? What do they expect them to be able to do with, people with new concepts and different backgrounds? And so it has been a really great experience. And I think it's turned out, I think we were confident that this was the right idea, but I think even now we're even more like confident that we went down the right path.
Yeah. So the idea in essence was a competition, but it was not a design competition, right? Like we always have to point that out. There's plenty of great design competitions, but those always end in someone winning prize money. They put it on their CV and then people move on. And we really want to do something different. So this idea of Launchpad, again, you can go to footwearinnovation.com and there's a lot of resources and information on this. But it was to send out to the world, a request for ideas. We basically had a 5-page document. We said, fill in this information, tell us where there's a gap in the market, where you think there's a problem with footwear or an opportunity, and what's your solution? So these were like really tactile ideas. These weren't shoe designs. These were technologies and, new brands and new ideas to change supply chains. But to your point, to make it work where it wasn't just a challenge where we said, oh, that's a great idea, you get first place, and that's the end of it. Innovation's a little bit different than design, obviously, because in innovation, the only thing that really matters is getting it to something commercially viable. And I do think there's a lot of great things with critical thought and being inspired and things like that we came through this program. But ultimately, like that's our goal, is to say, okay, we need a couple of these really great ideas. We need to push that to reality. And so to your point, what was really cool was the footwear industry, because the Footwear Innovation Foundation is the footwear industry. We're led and guided by a board of footwear professionals. It's not an outside group trying to do something. We're actually inside the industry trying to pull in talent and ideas and change how we do things. But to do that, to your point, we had to have someone from the outside who has multitude of experience in product development, launching product, commercializing ideas, but also has I think what's really important is like an academic, rigorous program and background to kind of help folks with ideas get those things to a real commercial application. And so we signed a contract this year with Liminal Group. The CEO, Michael Seeley, is joining us now. Michael, I think our partnership this year has been phenomenal because obviously we have like unlimited amount of footwear knowledge, right?
Right.
But that's also a curse in some ways. We know too much about what we know. Maybe there's a little too much cynicism or a little bit too much of this is how we've always done things. And so it's been fascinating to work with you and the Liminal Group around like bringing outside people to the industry, but not just that, but helping guide those people from the first point where they had one idea they want to submit through a boot camp. And I think this is the important part that I really want you to kind of explain the boot camp that they went through to get it to kind of pre-commercialization, pre-prototyping for where we're at now with our Launchpad program. But first, like Liminal Group, like what is the Liminal Group? Like why, I know why we're working with you guys, but maybe explain like your perspective and what you guys do. And I think too, the depth of who you have, like you have folks across industries working together on entrepreneurial and technological advancements. So first of all, welcome to the show. First time, not last time, hopefully.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me. Anytime you and I get in the room, I feel like it's a fun conversation. So I'm looking forward to it. Let me jump right in. So you mentioned Liminal Group. So I, founder, managing director, whatever you want to call me, of Liminal Group. Okay, and Liminal Group is a venture studio innovation development hub, and we quite literally were founded on the idea of bridging the gap between great ideas and investable business. And so it's I'm going to unpack something you and Alan just spoke to briefly, and I think it's really where the teams came together with the same vision where, competitions just for competition's sake and awarding money and feeling like venture building and real successful innovation just comes from throwing more money at things.
Yeah.
It's not the answer, right? We've done this so many times that we know that just having an event to have an event and high fives all around for great ideas and throw more money at it doesn't go anywhere. We knew that in order to impact the footwear industry, what the footwear industry needed was real actionable innovation. But we also knew that there was innovators and innovations out there in the world that didn't necessarily have a direct conduit into the industry. And so that first moment was to make sure that we looked at everybody across everything. I think that's the first thing of this competition that isn't a competition I want to call out is like, it was an open call that was non-traditional. It was an open call to all innovators of all types. You already mentioned it, right? We had engineers in there. We had scientists. We had engineers, manufacturers, artists, designers, you name it, inventors alike. And first thing was to make sure that we weren't just filtering based on, we'll call it the maturity of the idea at that moment. It was about actually going through hundreds of these, right? You remember this, Andy and Alan and a couple of us, we went through every single one of these applications and looked for potential. Whereas a lot of competitions will take ideas and award the ones that have the most compelling and most like clarity at that moment. We were looking for potential. And I love to call out, we had entries down to scientific white papers, right, that were entered, and we had to read through with our group of experts to say, you know what, this has potential. And what's unique is rather than just these folks that we filtered down to the end, rather than just put them on a stage and have them, we'll call it pitch or communicate their ideas to the public as they sat, we believe that cultivating, I think is a word that you used earlier, Andy, is the right way to do this. And so, Liminal Group is a coalition of experts. You named it. We're across all the product development, brand development, business development, experts of trade that are, that's what we do. We take great ideas and we turn them into investable businesses. We knew that we had to infuse that kind of mentorship, guidance, development with these ideas so that we could maximize the potential. And that this quote unquote, pitch event that we had in Detroit, which was fantastic, was more or less just a starting point. It was a more or less, we had to get some of these high potential, innovators and innovations in front of the industry at a certain level of clarity where a conversation could be had, a tangible conversation of what can we do with it, whether that's a business partnership, an investment, talent, getting jobs. There was all these fantastic success metrics. And so that's what we did, right? So we brought these mentors in and we took the top 8. So we went from hundreds to 50, this handful of 8. And we said, these are the top. And we ran them through 8 weeks of development. And that did, you mentioned a bit of curriculum, but at the same time, I think what was powerful, it wasn't just curriculum. We didn't just give a presentation and say, hey, go do this. We worked hand in hand with every one of these innovators to make sure that they as an innovator and their ideas were seen in the best light. And that is what really gave the substance and allowed the industry and those innovators to have clarity around what was happening.
Well, I think so. So again, this program is called the Footwear Launchpad. This was the first year of doing it. We had 200 applications from around the world. To Michael's point, we sat for hours and hours reading through all these applications. We filtered them down. It took a lot of work. We had what we thought were 50 really good ideas, and then we narrowed them down to 8 really great ideas. And I would say, from the point when you guys had the boot camp starting, so I saw those initial ideas, and again, some of them were just written out on a Word document. There was no PowerPoint presentation. There was no idea that this could be a business or anything. It's just somebody said, this is something completely missing in footwear, or something that footwear just doesn't do very well at all that I could solve. And then having this pitch event, it was a PLC Detroit. So Dr. Dwayne Edwards opened his doors for us, hosted us. We were able to fly in all these 8 top innovators to break bread together, talk about footwear, talk about innovation, and then allow them to pitch the industry. And some of the, I'll just kind of give some really interesting feedback. One of the sponsors said that it was very inspiring, that the Launchpad project is in existence and will continue to bolster the footwear community. It provided fresh eyes and new ways of thinking that are direly needed. It was quite inspiring. I think you and all involved have started a great program here, and I truly look forward to the next go at this. So that was a footwear company that had sponsored this, attended the event, heard from these participants, their pitches. And then even from the, this is the other thing too, Alan and Michael too, is it's not just the idea that we're cultivating, it's talent for the industry. And one participant said, I had such a life-changing experience in our 8-week boot camp, and I'm so excited for the next steps to bring something new to life. And it speaks to building those people up, building their talents up, building their idea up, but also this event that we had where we awarded first, second, and third place, which is great. But in subsequent weeks since then, we've been having conversations about, okay, like these people need to do these 3 things to actually do something with their innovation. So there you go again. It's not just doing the award, but it's actually saying, okay, we got to do some modeling, prototyping, and this is where we start plugging these folks in with the industry to try to build that out.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to add, I think that's what made this so unique and is continuing to hold this as being such a unique experience because it hasn't stopped, right? The awards happened, but that was a moment in time, and now we are continuing to support and build and grow. I would say grow the innovators and build their innovations live time. And again, that's what needs to happen. Throwing more money at things or not giving the innovators or the innovations that aren't at a clarity level yet is a lot of missed opportunity. That's a lot of missed opportunity from the innovation side and the innovators, out there that have huge potential. It's a lost opportunity for the industry to not be able to see some of this.
Alan always says this a lot. It was like, the amount of money, and it's not much money for people who want to sponsor this program, but the amount of money that someone can give this program and what they can get out of it is often more than their innovation teams internally can deliver for a company. Right, Alan?
Yeah, maybe. I don't want to sound bad against all the innovation teams out there. I've worked with a lot of them, but I think the point of that conversation, though, Andy, right, is like it's something that can operate outside of the machine, right? And I think every innovation team within a brand is set up to live within that ecosystem.
Right. They're solving like very specific issues within their brand or their product.
Right, exactly. And then so this is one that can come through, and it is not one idea meant for one brand, right? That I think that's the much different approach. Is like an innovation team at a brand is not looking to innovate for the industry. There's things that are like specifically important to their business, and this one is kind of meant to innovate for the industry. And so we've seen it with some of the feedback and conversations we've had that some people are kind of like, oh yeah, of the 8, these 3 they're kind of nice, but I didn't really get it. But these 3 are amazing. Like this, I can see a direct line to our business with these 3. And if you asked other brands, they would select a different 3. And so I think that diversity is what makes it unique and interesting. And that approach is what can make it really powerful for something that can exist alongside what a brand's already doing internally.
Yeah, and we talked to different companies when we talk to about this, when they're learning about this, and hopefully if anybody who wants to do a call, we're happy to do one and explain it more in depth about the process, the outputs, where we're heading with this thing. But just industry access, we did put up a lot of money as prize money. It really was telling folks out there that this was a conduit into the industry. This was their opportunity to reach footwear companies. And time again, we had heard from people that they had difficulties even getting a call back, even an email back from our industry, because I think it's in part because we're so busy. But this program was really fascinating because it allowed people access, and if they had a great idea, we heard them, we gave them feedback, we gave them value. The people who didn't make the top 8, there's still some great stuff out there that we're continuing to work with those folks and say, okay, like you didn't make the top 8, it's fine. Like here's some things you need to work on, and then resubmit and keep trying to get access to the industry. But that was a big thing. And even when we tell the industry that was a big complaint, the industry just sits there and is like, yeah, I get it. Like we have a lot of calls and we have a lot of people approaching us, and we just don't have the time. And this is like a great way to filter it and kind of find that talent that we're looking for.
Yeah. I think,
anybody so there's very well maybe going to be people who weren't in the top 8 that might see this, right? Like we're now getting to the point where we're getting some breathing room to be able to go back and say, hey, this is the kind of person that we should introduce this one to, because I think that was a really cool thing, right? Even though somebody wasn't in the top 8, it didn't mean that their idea may not have been even as good as somebody in the top 8, right? There were specific things that we were looking for people to bring into the boot camp. And there were some ideas that weren't in the top 8 that are kind of, ready to go almost.
Well, all those 42 ideas got pushed to the sponsors. So footwear companies got all 42 of those packets. So if you are in the 42, or this is the thing for future when people submit it. Like for me, I think it's great there's a first, second, and third, but that doesn't matter to me. I think what matters more is actually saying, like, who's got a great idea and willing to go and grind it out and make it a reality, and we'll help you do it. And if you're not in that cohort, the top cohort, we still want to give you access, right? If we believe in your idea and we believe that you have a way of thinking that's beneficial, you're going to get access to the industry. Yeah, this year it took a little bit longer than I think we wanted to, because it was the first year, and there's some bugs to work out for year 2. But I'm thrilled that people felt like they got heard. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of people who felt like they weren't being heard. And I feel like this, for our industry, for the first time, there's a connection with people on the outside that just have been knocking and not had that access.
Yeah, I want to emphasize something, Andy. I think it's a really important point, especially for folks that are thinking about this. Maybe they saw it and wanted to enter, didn't have time, or even people that want to re-enter. From the outside looking in, doing this so often, these competitions and pitch events and things, emphasizing that it isn't about the prize money, right? It isn't just about getting to first place and getting cash in hand. It's like the true value, and I think the 8 that went through this now have seen, and you've seen some feedback from it, that was a lot of the value, is getting clarity and getting their ideas to a point where they are heard and they're getting access to the industry, and they're talking with, people that they never would have been able to talk to before and are still continuing to, right? I think that's another huge thing, is like, as Alan mentioned, we're working, of course, with the 8, but we're also working through all of the others, and how can we maximize the value outside and inside? I think, Andy Polk, you and I have talked about this two-way door all the time, right? It's this two-way door from industry to innovators and innovators to industry. And heck, let's keep it open, right? Let's keep that door swinging.
Well, I think to be honest with you, this is the only door that's open in that way, that allows people to flow into the industry and filter it. That was a big thing. I had a conversation with some executives today, and they said, oh my gosh, like, this is a great program. And we love the fact that you're doing the filtering, right? Like, we don't have time to look at 200 ideas every day. But if you're filtering for us and we tell you what we're looking for, what some of our problems are, you can have a better keen eye and help filter that. Because again, for one company, it may be someone who's like, what might be on our list is number 76, but it fits for that company. And so that allows us to strategically say, okay, like, this person wasn't really in our top 50, but their idea and their thinking is really fascinating for you because of your product or your channel or your consumer or whatever that is. So I think it's fascinating that, most competitions will discard that and not keep an eye on that. And I think we're just trying to build something different. And I know we constantly say that, but it is true. Like, we're trying to build something different that adds value for the innovator, for the industry, for individuals, but also just what was really fun in Detroit was when these presentations happened, Alan, we had industry leaders who have been doing this for a long time, inspired themselves. Like, they were really, truly inspired and excited and thought about things just a little bit differently than they had in the past. And just seeing that kind of happen, I think, was really fascinating from my standpoint. I don't know how you felt about it, but I was really encouraged by that.
Yeah, the event, and I think, Andy, that's like one of our learnings, right, is that event really was a special event, and we'll see when we evolve it or whatever, but literally just the moment and the energy. And I think that's like, we had industry people that were judges, and we had different people that coming in there that were sponsors, and just to see that experience and see it all at once. And the judges, like, they didn't know what they were going to see, right? And so for them all to come in afterwards and basically say, yeah, this was great. Like, I didn't know what the next one was going to be. And each one was interesting and exciting in their own way. So there's something sort of there that it culminates in that event that is a really great moment.
And I know we're about to wrap up, but I also know that Liminal Group has been helping kind of cultivate kind of the findings, right? From all 200 applications, what are the threads that the industry needs to look at? And I think Alan and I have talked about this idea of doing a webinar for the industry to kind of present outside ideas into the industry. If Alan, you want to say something really quickly about that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about the trend information, right? I mean, right, we can never give a presentation where we're going to talk about all these individual ideas, but what we were doing on the Liminal Group side, and Mike and I, and we worked with the team, is start to bucket like, hey, this is, when you put out an open call for innovation, these are the areas that people are kind of like saying they're looking for something in. And some of that is kind of really valuable to know, like what happens, what are people looking at, like how much of it is AI, how much of it is like traditional things, how much of it is more of a cultural aspect. And that's going to be really interesting information. We're looking forward to sort of engaging with the industry on.
Yeah, so that'll come out a few months from now. We'll see about that. But as we wrap up, I just want to, and this is just the first part of our conversation on this. I think as we go through where we are with Yate and the other folks about how we're moving into prototyping and modeling, we'll have more conversations to unveil. But this is just to let people know this is happening in our industry. It's called Launchpad, Footwear Innovation Foundation, times Liminal Group. So it's both the footwear industry kind of facilitators and also Liminal Group and their expertise from other industries and entrepreneurship and taking technical things and putting them into supply chains and commercializing them. And again, footwearinnovation.com, you can learn more about that. If you want to do a call, if you're interested in sponsoring and getting involved and getting access to all this, we would love for you to. Please just drop me a line. But as I wrap it up on behalf, and I thank Alan and Michael for coming on today to sharing a little bit about that, I'll kind of just wrap this up from a comment Dr. Dwayne Edwards had said. His comment was, watching this first FIF Launchpad cohort bring us new concepts has been one of the more inspiring moments in our industry in years. These innovators prove that great ideas don't just come from inside footwear, they come from everywhere. The FIF, Liminal Group, and this Launchpad program are essential because they open the doors wide, invite in new perspectives, and push us to evolve. If we want to build the future of footwear, we must keep this pipeline alive and continue to invest in fresh thinkers who challenge the way we've always done it. Every company should donate to keep this going. This is Dr. Dwayne Edwards, the head of PLC. And with that, I'll just leave that right there. Dwayne was a judge for this, and I think he was very impressed for the first cohort. We're excited about what's coming and what we're building with this, but we want the industry involved. The more folks we have involved, the better and larger pipeline we can build for the industry of talent and ideas. And again, thank you so much for listening. If you request more information on this program, go to footwearinnovation.com or drop me a line. Happy to talk about it. We are very excited about this because it is not a concept anymore. It's a reality. And the future of footwear is being built day by day by the Footwear Innovation Foundation, Liminal Group, and our partners. So thanks to all of them. On behalf of Shoe and Show, every Monday, new episode. Until then, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.